Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sip Clip segment here at the Urban Wine Club. I'm your host, Foti, and with me, as always, my co-host, Ari Kalos.
As we say, I am like your, no, I am the Garth to your Wayne.
Yes, sir.
The young people
Absolutely.
won't get that reference, but
Can
we're
you give
old.
a younger reference? That way, the others can connect to what you're saying.
Oh man, I don't even know. Like, who's popular and cool now? I have no idea.
Uh, well, in any event, here we are again in another segment, and it wasn't until I was at your place not too long ago, and trying to figure out what the hell do you have to drink.
Well, there were a couple of problems. The first problem is like sometimes I don't have wine. When I do have wine, it's like I'll
Wait, is
just
that
like
because you expect me to bring it to? Is
yes,
that
yes.
okay? Got it.
What,
Got it.
why would I go and buy wine? But if I do have it, it's like scattered about my apartment or like on a counter or whatever. It's just a horrible, horrible setup, and I shouldn't even admit that as part of Urban Wine Club, but I am because I need help. And I know you, I believe in the past, have set up wine cellars and wine at
Yeah,
people's homes.
I have, and every situation was very different from the other, and every it's a case by case basis. But as you see here, we have a bunch of wine behind me that we curate. But at the end of the day, it's basically what the individual is looking to do, and every cellar, every wine collection is very different from the other. So what I tell folks is don't overthink it, that you need to have certain things just because of the sake of having it, right?
Yeah.
So I noticed that obviously you enjoy drinking wine, you enjoy exploring wine, and most of the times we're purchasing wine that's just for the moment. We're not really buying bottles and cases of wine.
So let's take me, for example. I would love to have like a wine collection. I don't want to spend like a whole ton of money. I'm not going to build a wine cellar. Maybe we could touch upon that like right after, but let's just start with me as an example. I want to have a somewhat nice, kind of sophisticated wine collection for when people come over. And without like a wine cellar, what setup should I have and what wines would make a good starter for people like me? Like maybe young
Very.
people living in an apartment or something like that.
All right, so it's all in the approach, right? So you just broke it down, basically who you are and what you're trying to achieve, which is relative to, your environment, your guests, and you personally. So, having said that, you want to make sure that we're appealing or appeasing our guests, which you said, young folks living in an apartment. So we're going to probably uh, look at it as far as bringing some wine in to have that typically are trending
Yeah.
on the cutting edge, and also are inviting and appealing to just about anyone that's either a newbie to wine
Yeah.
or has a sophisticated palate. So having said that, you want to be able to have, so you want to have whites, a little bit of rosés, and your reds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
It
let's throw
sounds
in,
like, the mixture
let,
of,
and let's throw in a little bit of sparkles too.
yeah.
So I would say that in your wine pantry, depending if you're going to have it in your, do you have a cellar? Do you have a basement? I said cellar. Basement. Do you have like a cubby hole underneath your staircase,
I have a cubby
garage?
hole in the back side of my kitchen, which would
All right,
actually be
cool.
perfect because it's
All right.
dark.
So let's start here. So let's start with bubbles. You should either have some prosecco or some cava, which is Spanish sparkling wine.
Yeah. Love that.
Um, right? So those two right there is a great option for any of our guests that are coming that are looking to have some refreshing bubbles, right?
Yeah.
Inexpensive, tasty, and great value. So that you should have that. Then going into whites, for guests and ourselves, we should definitely have some Sauvignon Blanc,
Mm.
whether it's French or New Zealand. Uh, now this time of year, it's really fitting, refreshing, crisp, inviting. And then I know I hate to say this, but some folks like really, but you should definitely have a little bit of Chardonnay, a bottle or two here and there, because believe it or not, there are folks even in our demographic and the ones that are even younger. There's French Chardonnays, there's California Chardonnays, there's South African Chardonnays. I would say having a couple of bottles of that just in case is also recommended
Okay.
for our whites. And then you should throw in and throw in an adventurous white. You know, maybe we can throw in a bottle or a couple of bottles from, you know, what's up and coming. So from Spain, Albarino is popular. From Greece, you can get a couple bottles from Santorini. Those whites are on fire right now.
Yeah.
Then you can also consider, you know, some of the other options that are coming from Austria, like Gruner Veltliner. These are all wines that are very crisp and inviting. That's what we're looking for.
Okay.
So Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and then an adventurous white that we just mentioned. Those three selections of whites, I would say have a bottle or two just in case. That would kind of fit the criteria for any type of drinker that comes to the doors.
Yeah. Okay.
Rosé, I mean, the big thing about rosé is we like them to be dry and crisp. As we've discussed in our previous segments, most folks associate rosé for some reason as being sweet, and they're not. They're dry. So French rosés, doesn't matter where they come from. There's such a vast variety to choose from. Provence is a great area for rosés, the south of France. And now we're starting to see productions that are coming from the Rhone and Bordeaux and Burgundy. So rosés, make sure they're dry.
Yeah.
Right. And then moving to reds. So we want to play it safe. So the two main reds that you should have for your guests and for your own enjoyment is either Pinot Noir or Cabernets, right?
Okay.
And then the third thing that you should have possibly is a red blend. That seems to be the trend now. So Pinot Noir, Cabernet, and red blends. And
So the
red blends are
Pinot for something light, the Cab for something a little bolder, and what's the red blend, like the middle or?
No, red blend is more of the adventure, the creative side of winemaking that's really innovative. It's cool. It's, you know, so, and there's red blends being done everywhere, whether they're modern or they're rustic. You know, red blends are becoming more and more of interest.
Okay.
So this is basically the lineup that you want to have if you're a person that loves to host and entertain, or you know that every so often someone pops over to the house or to the apartment, you have something to bring out, right?
So what do you think, like about 9 wines? Or about 12 wines?
As far as bottles go, yeah. So 12 bottles dictates what we call a case. That's a case of wine. So having a case in your cellar, in your garage, in your cubbyhole, in your basement is basically what we recommend having always on hand. Always having a case of wine, because for those moments of guests coming over, and that doesn't include when you're actually hosting an actual dinner. This is just basically
right. Because I'm saying I just want to have something on hand that looks nice, that makes me feel like I'm a grown-up, respectable wine drinker.
Yeah, and you know, and you'd be surprised if you take those simple steps. I guarantee you'll make an impact on your guests, and they're gonna think that you're a wine aficionado, when in reality you're not. You're basically taking some basic steps to, you know, complement selections and appease your guests, because you know you're gonna get folks that are picky.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you know, I only drink this, and oh, I don't know about that. But having that variety right there, the way we just broke it down, would definitely take care of any type of drinker.
Okay, so step one. Step two, I have this little like wine cabinet, which I want to get rid of because it's in direct sunlight. That's a no-no,
Get
right?
rid of it. Oh,
Um,
relocated is what I want to say.
so we want it to be dark.
Dark.
And theoretically, ultimately, I don't know if it's possible for everybody. I'm not even sure if it's possible for me. I could do the dark, but what's the temperature? Like 55 or something that they should be stored at?
Yeah, if you can get the environment of the room or the area that they're in like under 60, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
under
think that's
60
just the
could be,
tougher part.
basements, like I said, anything that's low to the ground, your garage, and but then again, a garage in the summertime, it gets pretty hot. So
Well, I'm thinking of myself as, when I was on my third floor apartment and not real access to the basement. I don't have a garage. It's like, what could I do in that situation? Which I think a
how
lot
about
of
this?
young people, especially if they're home now
If
with
you really care about the way you store your wine, if you really care about the results of what you're sipping in your glass, make a small investment, about $50, and you can find these really inexpensive wine coolers on Amazon that are countertop, and you can put 12 bottles at a time in them, and that will do the trick for you.
we should totally sell those too. I don't understand why we don't.
Because we're too busy drinking wine. There's no time to store anything.
Oh, that's another thing. If you are somebody who is planning on keeping wine for a long time, or somebody who just wants it to drink,
Well,
like, is there a
right.
difference of what you should do?
Yeah, so we live in times where we want things like now and right away. Hi, how are you? Let me know if you need any help or if you have any questions.
All right, so just start from there.
So here's the thing, Ari. Creating a collection for immediate consumption, because as I mentioned, is that we are consumers that want to drink things and eat things now. At one point in time, as consumers, there was this interest of putting wine away for a long time because we were anticipating how it's going to be when it's ready to drink years later, right? Because certain wines evolve in the bottle and they taste better as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
That notion of enjoying wine has kind of slipped away. Not many consumers today think about that. They don't think about uh, putting the time, effort, and money into purchasing bottles of wine, which is primarily red wines, that they're going to enjoy 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or maybe even 20 years from the time that they purchase it.
Yeah.
That's not happening as often, but we still want, our guests and our members and our folks who follow us is to basically kind of, experiment with putting some wine away, and it could be as long term as a couple of years if you can wait that long, and buy some bottles that you enjoy drinking now and see how they are in a couple of years. And there's some areas of the world that we can suggest, like where to start a collection of wines that you want to sit on
Yeah.
and have for the most part. So, I mean, there's what's called modern wines, which are wines that have plenty of flavor and structure that you can drink right away and they're just delicious. Then there's what's called the old world wines that actually are sophisticated, they need time, and they get smoother as time goes on. So to your question, you're asking, I want to create a collection. So what is the end goal? Do you want to create a collection because you want to, you want to you want to tell your friends and your family like, oh, I got a bunch of cool wines in my cellar. We'll wait for a special moment to open a bottle, whether it's a celebration, a milestone, just something happens and something happens in your life and you want to celebrate.
Yeah.
Or you are really determined to have wine that you enjoy and watch it change over time. Right?
Well, I
There's all
mean,
these factors.
me personally, I think it's the former. Like, I just want to have nice wines. just to be ready. People come over. We want to like have a nice bottle of wine and good to go, ready. And so, you know, that's my angle. And I feel like, you know, in these circumstances we're in and a lot of the younger demographic, I mean, that's kind of like what I think is their
Yeah,
angle. And it's cool, like for young people to kind of get into that, like having a nice wine collection. Um, and you know, once you're established and older, and you know, you could actually have a physical cellar or a place and build it out nice. I mean, I think that changes things, and I'm sure you could make a lot of recommendations for that as
yeah.
well.
You know, sometimes, you know, that thought becomes overwhelming for lots of folks that, you know, where do I start? Where do I begin? I think you should evolve before you even get to that point as a
Yeah,
drinker. You should exactly do as you were saying, like, you know, start off with bringing wine to your home or to your residence that you enjoy drinking now, and you know, keep it coming in, whether you get it weekly, whether you get it bi-weekly or monthly, and have those wines in your home. And then eventually, I think that you can take it to the next level, and maybe something that actually caught your eye, you get a couple of cases of it, and you start putting some of that to the side while you continuously enjoy other wines at the same token, and then you have
yeah.
this collection that's growing. But for those that are thinking about like what wines are great to store, what wines are great later on when they have time on their aging, um, you know, it's a complicated, complex situation. But to kind of break it down, I'll just give a couple areas in the world that if those that are listening to the podcast are interested in kind of putting wines away to try later but have never done it before, is this. Let's start with two parts of the world. Italy is primarily where I like to begin because it's the easier of the areas to kind of understand and associate.
Hmm.
Um, red wines. So we're basically storing red wines. White wines don't age well.
Yeah.
Some do, but that's a topic for another time.
Okay.
So red wines that have high levels of tannins are the wines that actually age well, right? We've talked about tannins before. What are tannins?
Yeah.
So tannins are that sensation and outcome of a red wine, that we get that little bit of bitterness when we drink red wine. It's that kind of sensation on our palate, almost equivalent to, or not almost, but it is the equivalent of whenever you have an actual grape with a seed in it, and you actually decide to eat that grape, and you chew on the seeds.
Hmm.
Once you're crushing the seeds in your mouth, you know, the seeds are releasing this compound that's an oily compound known as tannins. So think about chewing on a grape, chewing on the seeds. It releases that bitterness.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that bitterness and that oiliness are what's known as tannins. Those compounds or tannins is what actually preserves and also develops red wine.
Okay.
So wines that have high levels of tannins age well. They evolve and they become a lot smoother over time. In the very beginning of a wine production, a wine that's they consider young, once it's bottled and it's out in the market, certain wines when they're consumed too early, they're too tart, or they have too much of that tannin going on that makes it almost non-appealing to a lot of drinkers.
Yeah.
You take that same bottle though, and you put it away for a couple of years, it starts to change,
Hmm.
and it gets smoother over time. So wines that have high levels of tannins, red wines that have high levels of tannins that have potential for aging, are wines from the northern parts of Italy, in an area called Piedmont. And Piedmont, they grow, one of the main grapes they grow is called Nebbiolo. And anything made from Nebbiolo has great aging potential. So some of us that are listening to this podcast, some areas in Piedmont that are very well known are places like Barbaresco, Barolo, Langhe. Those are areas in that northern part of Italy that make exceptional red wines, but they become amazingly better over time.
If you don't know, how would you know to buy like a wine that has a lot of tannins? Like how would you know it has a lot of tannins?
You, if you do, you're gonna have to do a couple things. Is one, is ask any clerk at the wine shop, someone that's working the floor, to help direct you to wines of that nature. If there's someone there that, if there's no one there to help you, or
Hmm.
if the person that's trying to help you is having a hard time, Google it. If you Google, best wines to age, grape variety, and they'll break it down for you. Then once you get that information, go to your local wine shop or retail shop and start from there.
So you have to
But in
have
this,
this knowledge. Like you can't just go in and look at a bottle and say, this has lots of tannins.
no, it's not going to give you that. Unfortunately, it's not going to give you that information.
Okay.
But at least here with our segments, our goal is to kind of give you that information so that it can enhance your experience and make a better purchase of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So the goal here is, again, if you want to put wine away and age it so that it's better over time, red wines with high levels of tannins are the key. Not to get too complicated and too technical and geeky, but that's where it starts. You need wines with good levels of tannins so that
Okay.
you age better. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So we covered kind of like a beginner, kind of, moderate wine collection to start with for young people. Now, if you want to do a little bit of aging, we know like what to look for. We know roughly where to store it, somewhere dark preferably and cooler under 60 preferably.
Preferably, yes.
And when I become a millionaire, I'm building a bunker 75 feet underwater, and I'm going to store my wine there. Does that make sense to you?
Does that mean you're going to be constantly checking the wine with scuba gear?
Can you imagine?
Yeah, there's a
Well,
lot of
it's a joke, but I read somewhere, and Foti will address this, but some guy said that noise disrupts the taste of wine over time. So
well,
then he's like, I'm going to put it 75 feet in the ocean where it's completely quiet or whatever he was saying.
listen, I'll still drink wine that's affected by noise. Don't get me wrong.
I scream
I'm
at
not,
my wine.
all right. But, it's interesting because there is a fellow winemaker from Greece that we're familiar with. His name is Mr. Paraskevopoulos. He owns a winery in something called Gaia. And he actually attempted, and he did this, and I think the wine has been released, but he took a batch of his Prosecco and he bottled it and he put it together and actually stored it underwater in the oceans of the Aegean for like 2 years.
That's exactly what
And
this guy was saying. Yeah.
and according to him, it was that the ecosystem underwater, the right temperature, dark. The vibrations of the ocean was they were very subtle, so it couldn't really affect the wine as much. And I guess it was away from noise. So
Yeah.
really, so that was a very bold, courageous situation where a winemaker decided to like give up so much juice to store underwater to see the results of it. But it's been done before, and there's all these innovative ways of how to make wine better, and I think that we're going to see a lot more of that coming through as well.
We don't need to do any of that stuff because I could tell you right now how to make wine better. Just keep drinking it. The more you drink, the better it gets.
Yeah, after a second glass of anything, everything tastes better.
I am
Typically,
full agreement. All right, good stuff, good information. Yeah, so I'm gonna expect you to send me some of the stuff we talked about, so I don't have to go out and buy it.
Absolutely, that's what we're here for.
All right, thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully you were informed as I was, and if you don't have a collection, get out there, get your collection started. See us, see our website, go see Foti personally. And you'll always get the best recommendations. So thank you. Check out our webinars. We have one every Thursday pretty much for the upcoming future. Our podcast and our sip clips that we're constantly pumping out. So thank you again, Foti. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ari. Keep drinking. Actually, drink better wine. That's what we always want to make sure we point out. And in order to drink better wine, you got to follow what we do.
Exactly. All right. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Take
We'll
care.
see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.